It was a bright, sunny afternoon in Oakwood Pines. This was a small neighborhood where houses sat close together, and people waved at each other from their yards. Everyone seemed to know everyone, or at least, that's what they thought. Kids rode bikes down the street, dogs barked at squirrels, and the air smelled like fresh cut grass. It was a happy little place, quiet and peaceful. But something exciting was about to happen. Something nobody saw coming. Let me tell you about Jake Miller. Jake was a new guy in town. He moved into the little blue house on Maple Lane just a few weeks ago. He didn't talk much. He wasn't loud or flashy like some people. Jake was the kind of guy who liked to keep things simple. He had short brown hair, a friendly smile, and a pair of old sneakers he wore every day. Most of the time, you'd find him sitting on his front porch, swinging back and forth on a wooden porch swing he'd hung up himself. It wasn't fancy, just a plain swing with a soft creak every time it moved. But to Jake, it was perfect. He'd sit there with a glass of lemonade, watching the world go by, happy as could be. The neighbors didn't mind Jake. He was quiet and polite. Sometimes he'd wave at them or say a quick hello when they passed by. But not everyone liked him. Oh no. There was one person who didn't like Jake at all. Her name was Karen Pritchard, and she was trouble with a capital T. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the president of the HOA. That stands for Homeowners Association. It's a group of people who make rules for the neighborhood, like what color you can paint your house or how tall your grass can grow. Karen loved being in charge. She walked around with a clipboard in her hand, writing down anything she didn't like. She had sharp eyes that could spot a weed from a mile away and a loud voice that made people jump. Her hair was always pulled back tight, and she wore big sunglasses that made her look like a boss. To Karen, Oakwood Pines was her kingdom, and she was the queen. Now, most people listened to Karen because they didn't want trouble. If she said your mailbox was too rusty, you'd fix it. If she said your dog barked too much, you'd hush it up. Karen liked things perfect, her kind of perfect. And when Jake showed up with his porch swing, well, that didn't fit into her perfect picture at all. The first time Karen saw that swing, her nose wrinkled up like she smelled something bad. She marched right over to Jake's house, her clipboard tucked under her arm. Jake was sitting on his swing, sipping lemonade, when she stopped in front of him. "What's this?" she asked, pointing at the swing like it was a pile of trash. Jake looked up, calm as ever. "It's my porch swing," he said. "I like it." Karen didn't like that answer. Not one bit. She crossed her arms and tapped her foot on the ground. "This isn't allowed," she said. "It's against the rules." Jake just shrugged. "I checked the rules," he told her. "It's fine." That made Karen mad. Really mad. Her face turned a little red, and her eyes got narrow. "We'll see about that," she snapped, then turned and stomped away. From that day on, Karen decided Jake was her enemy. She didn't like how he didn't argue with her. She didn't like how he stayed so calm. And most of all, she didn't like that porch swing. To her, it was like a big sign that said Jake didn't care about her rules. Every time she walked by his house, and she walked by a lot, she'd glare at that swing. Sometimes she'd stop and stare, writing something on her clipboard. Other times, she'd mutter to herself, loud enough for Jake to hear. "This isn't over," she'd say. "Not by a long shot." Jake didn't fight back. He didn't yell or get upset. He just kept sitting on his swing, rocking back and forth, watching Karen huff and puff. The neighbors started to notice. They'd peek out their windows or whisper to each other over the fence. "Karen's got it out for the new guy," they'd say. "Wonder what she'll do next." But Jake? He didn't seem worried. Not even a little. He'd smile and wave at the neighbors like nothing was wrong. It was almost like he knew something they didn't. Here's the thing, and this is the big secret Karen didn't know: Jake wasn't just some regular guy. Nope. He was special. Different. He had a trick up his sleeve, something big that would turn everything upside down. Karen thought she was the smartest person on the block. She thought she could boss Jake around and make him take that swing down. But oh boy, was she wrong. Jake wasn't scared of her. He wasn't even annoyed. He was waiting. Waiting for the perfect moment to show her who he really was. Imagine Karen's face when she finds out. Picture her standing there, all proud and bossy, thinking she's won, then boom. Everything changes. Her eyes would get wide, her mouth would drop open, and that clipboard might just fall right out of her hands. What do you think she'd look like? Surprised? Scared? Mad? Maybe all three at once. You'll have to stick around to see, because this story's just getting started. So, what was Jake hiding? Why didn't he care about Karen's rules? And what was going to happen when she pushed him too far? That's the fun part. Little by little, you'll find out. This sunny afternoon in Oakwood Pines was about to get a whole lot wilder. Karen thought she was in control, but Jake had a surprise that would flip her world upside down. And that porch swing? It was just the beginning. See, Jake wasn't the kind of guy who liked trouble. He didn't move to Oakwood Pines to start a fight. He just wanted a quiet place to live and a swing to sit on. But Karen didn't see it that way. To her, Jake was a problem. A big one. She didn't know it yet, but she was the one who should have been worried. Every time she glared at him, every time she wrote something on that clipboard, she was digging herself into a bigger mess. And Jake? He was ready for it? The neighbors didn't know the truth either. They saw a quiet guy and a loud lady, and they figured Karen would win. She always did. But this time was different. This time, she picked the wrong person to mess with. Jake's secret was like a hidden treasure, buried under his calm smile and easy way of talking. Nobody saw it coming, not Karen, not the neighbors, not even the birds chirping in the trees. So here we are, on this sunny day in Oakwood Pines. The swing creaked, the lemonade sparkled in Jake's glass, and Karen's shoes clicked on the sidewalk as she planned her next move. It felt like a normal day. But it wasn't. Something big was brewing. Something that would make everyone stop and stare. What do you think Jake's secret could be? Why was he so calm? Hold on tight, because you're about to find out, and trust me, it's going to be good. Karen Pritchard was not a quiet person. She loved telling everyone what she thought, whether they wanted to hear it or not. The very second Jake Miller hung up his porch swing, she was ready to pounce. That swing wasn't even up for a full day before Karen showed up at his house. She stood on his front lawn, her hands on her hips, and her clipboard tucked under her arm like a weapon. That swing is against Regulation 14B, she shouted, her voice loud and sharp. She wagged her finger at Jake, like a teacher telling a kid they broke the rules. Her face was all scrunched up, and her eyes were mad. Jake didn't jump or get scared. He was sitting on his swing, rocking back and forth, holding a cold glass of lemonade. He looked up at Karen and smiled. I checked the rules, he said, nice and easy. It's fine. His voice was calm, like he didn't have a worry in the world. But Karen? Oh, she didn't like that one bit. She wasn't used to people talking back to her. Usually, when she said something, people just nodded and did what she wanted. Not Jake, though. He didn't budge. Karen's lips pressed together so tight they almost disappeared. She squinted at him, her eyes like little lasers trying to burn a hole through his head. We'll see about that, she muttered under her breath, but loud enough for Jake to hear. Then she turned around and marched off, her shoes clicking hard on the sidewalk. She was mad, really mad. That swing wasn't just a swing to her. It was like a big sign that Jake didn't care about her rules. And Karen loved her rules more than anything. From that day on, Karen made it her mission to bother Jake. Every single day, she'd walk by his house. Sometimes it was in the morning when the sun was just coming up. Sometimes it was in the afternoon when kids were playing outside. Every time, she'd stop and glare at that porch swing. Her eyes would lock onto it like it was the worst thing she'd ever seen. The swing would creak a little in the breeze, and Jake would sit there, sipping his lemonade, not saying a word. Karen's face would get redder and redder, like a tomato about to burst. The neighbors started to notice. Oakwood Pines was a small place, and people liked to talk. They'd peek out their windows or chat over their fences. Karen's mad again, they'd whisper. She hates that swing. Some of them thought it was funny. Others wondered why she cared so much about something so small. It's just a swing, one lady said, shaking her head. What's the big deal? But to Karen, it wasn't just a swing. It was a fight. A fight she was determined to win. Karen didn't just glare. She started doing other things, too. She'd pull out her clipboard and write stuff down while staring at Jake's house. Scribble, scribble, scribble. Her pen moved fast, like she was making a list of all the ways she could get him in trouble. Sometimes she'd mutter to herself, loud enough for Jake to hear. "This isn't over," she'd say. Or, "You'll be sorry." Jake didn't react. He didn't yell back or tell her to go away. He just kept swinging, calm as could be, like he didn't even notice her. That made Karen even madder. She wasn't used to people ignoring her. She liked being the boss, the one who told everyone what to do. When Jake didn't fight back, it was like he was saying her power didn't matter. And that drove her crazy. One day, she stopped right in front of his house and pointed at the swing. "This is a safety problem," she yelled. "It's ugly, and it's against the rules." Jake looked at her, still smiling. "I like it," he said. That was all. 3 little words. But they were enough to make Karen stomp off again, huffing and puffing like a dragon. The neighbors kept watching. They could feel something big was coming. "She's planning something," one guy said, leaning over his mailbox. "Karen doesn't give up easy." Another lady nodded. "She's got that look in her eye. You know, the one she had when she made Mr. Thompson paint his shed twice." Everyone knew Karen didn't stop until she got her way. They figured Jake was in for a tough time. Poor Jake, they thought. He's new here. He doesn't know what he's up against. But Jake wasn't worried. Not even a little. While Karen marched around with her clipboard and her mean looks, he stayed cool. He'd sit on his swing every day, sipping that lemonade, watching her like she was a show on TV. The sun would shine, the birds would chirp, and Jake would rock back and forth. Creak, creak, creak went the swing. Sometimes he'd wave at the neighbors, nice and friendly. "Hey there," he'd say, like nothing was wrong. And maybe, just maybe, nothing was wrong for him. Why was Jake so calm? What was he waiting for? Karen thought she had all the power. She thought she could scare him, boss him around, make him take that swing down. But Jake wasn't scared. He wasn't mad. He was just waiting. Waiting for something. The neighbors didn't know what it was. Karen sure didn't know. But it was there, hiding behind Jake's quiet smile. Something big. Something that would change everything. Karen kept pushing. Every day, she'd find a new reason to hate that swing. "It's too loud," she'd say, even though it barely made a sound. "It's dangerous," she'd yell, even though it was just a swing. She'd stand there, glaring, her hands on her hips, trying to make Jake feel small. But Jake didn't feel small. He didn't argue or shout. He just kept on swinging, like he knew something she didn't. And he did. Oh, he did. The tension was growing. You could feel it in the air, like the way it feels before a big storm. Karen was getting louder, meaner, more bossy. The neighbors were whispering more, watching more, waiting to see what would happen. They thought Karen would win, because she always did. But Jake? He wasn't playing her game. He wasn't fighting her fight. He was doing something else, something smart, something sneaky. What was Jake waiting for? Why didn't he care about Karen's yelling? You'll find out soon, I promise. Karen thought she was the queen of Oakwood Pines. She thought she could snap her fingers and make Jake obey. But she was wrong. So wrong. That swing wasn't just a swing. It was a trap Karen was walking right into. And Jake? He was ready to spring it. So, picture this, Karen stomping around, clipboard in hand, thinking she's the boss. Jake swinging away, lemonade in hand, looking like he doesn't have a care in the world. The neighbors peeking out, waiting for the big showdown. It's all building up, step by step, day by day. Something's coming. Something exciting. Stick around, you're going to love what happens next. Days went by in Oakwood Pines, and things started to heat up. Karen Pritchard wasn't giving up on her fight with Jake Miller. Oh no, she was just getting started. She didn't like that porch swing one bit, and she was ready to do whatever it took to get rid of it. Every day, she got a little braver, a little meaner, a little louder. It was like watching a storm cloud grow bigger and darker right over Jake's house. At first, Karen just glared at the swing and wrote stuff on her clipboard. But now, she stepped it up. One sunny afternoon, She pulled out her phone and started snapping pictures of Jake's swing. Click, click, click. Her fingers moved fast, taking shot after shot. She stood on the sidewalk, zooming in like she was a detective looking for clues. Jake was sitting there, swinging as usual, sipping his lemonade. He didn't say anything. He just watched her, calm as ever. Karen didn't care. She kept taking pictures, her lips pressed tight, her eyes sharp. Then she'd scribble notes on her clipboard, writing so fast her pen almost ripped the paper. It was like she was building a big case against that swing. The neighbors saw it all. They'd peek out their windows or stop watering their flowers to stare. "What's she doing now?" one guy whispered to his wife. "Taking pictures," she said back. "She's really mad this time." Everyone could tell Karen was up to something. She wasn't just annoyed anymore, she was on a mission. Scribble, scribble, snap, snap. She acted like that swing was the biggest problem in the world. But Jake? He didn't move. He didn't yell. He just kept swinging, creak, 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 like nothing was wrong. Then one morning, Karen went even further. The sun was just peeking over the trees, and Jake was still in his pajamas, drinking coffee on his swing. Suddenly, bang, bang, bang. Karen was at his door, pounding on it with her fist. Jake opened it, rubbing his eyes, still sleepy. Karen didn't wait for him to say hi. "This swing is a safety hazard," she yelled, pointing at it like it was a monster. Her voice was so loud the birds stopped chirping. "It's dangerous, and I'm calling the cops." Jake looked at her, blinking slow. Then he nodded, nice and easy. "Go ahead," he said, like it was no big deal. Just 2 little words. "Go ahead." That made Karen's face turn redder than a fire truck. She wasn't expecting him to say that. She wanted him to argue, to get mad, to fight back. But Jake didn't. He just stood there, calm as a cucumber, while Karen's eyes got big and wild. "Fine," she snapped. "I will." She spun around and stormed off his porch, her shoes stomping so hard the ground shook. She didn't even wait to get home. Right there on Jake's lawn, she yanked out her phone and dialed 911. "Hello, police," she shouted into it. "There's a disturbance at 42 Maple Lane. You need to come quick." Her voice was loud and bossy, like she was the queen of everything. Jake didn't move. He didn't run inside or try to stop her. He just closed his door, sat back on his swing, and watched. The neighbors heard it all. They poked their heads out, eyes wide. "She's calling the cops," one lady gasped. "Over a swing," a man said, shaking his head. Everyone thought Karen had lost it. A swing wasn't a crime, right? But Karen didn't care. She stood there, phone to her ear, telling the police all about how Jake's swing was ruining the neighborhood. She waved her arms around, pointing at the house, her clipboard tucked under her arm like a shield. But here's where it gets good. While Karen was yelling into her phone, something sneaky happened. A police car rolled up the street. It was quiet, no sirens, no lights, just the soft hum of the engine. It stopped right behind Karen, parking on the side of the road. 2 cops sat inside, watching her. Karen didn't even notice. She was too busy shouting. "Yes, it's an emergency," she said. "This man won't follow the rules." She kept going, her back to the car, her voice bouncing off the houses. The neighbors saw it, though. They whispered to each other. "Look, the police are here," one said. "Why are they so quiet?" another asked. Jake saw it too. He was still on his swing, rocking back and forth, his coffee cup in his hand. He looked at the police car, then at Karen, and a tiny smile crept onto his face. Just a little one, like he knew something funny was about to happen. Karen kept ranting, waving her phone around, totally clueless. The cops didn't get out yet. They just sat there, waiting, watching her like she was putting on a show. Why were they there? Why didn't they jump out and talk to Jake? Oh, you're going to love this part, it's a twist you won't see coming. Karen thought she was winning. She thought calling the cops would scare Jake, make him take down that swing once and for all. She stood tall, her chin up, like she'd just won a big prize. "They'll be here soon," she muttered to herself, smirking. "Then we'll see who's right." But the cops were already there. Right behind her. And they weren't moving toward Jake's house. Nope. They were looking at her. Why? What was going on? The air felt thick, like something big was about to pop. The neighbors couldn't believe it. Did she call them already? One lady asked. No, that was too fast, her husband said. They were already coming. Everyone was confused. Karen kept talking on her phone, telling the 911 lady all about the dangerous swing. She didn't hear the car doors open. She didn't see the cops step out, slow and quiet, their boots soft on the pavement. Jake did, though. He leaned back on his swing, that little smile still there, like he was waiting for the best part of a movie. What was happening? Why were the cops sneaking up like that? Karen thought she was the one in charge, but something was off. Something big was brewing. Jake wasn't worried, not even a little. He didn't care that Karen called the police. He didn't care that she was yelling about his swing. He just sat there, calm and cool, like he knew a secret. And he did. A big one. A secret that was about to make Karen's jaw drop. The cops stood there, just a few steps behind her now. Karen still didn't turn around. She was too busy being loud, too busy thinking she'd won. But the neighbors saw it. They held their breath, waiting. Jake sipped his coffee, watching. The swing creaked. The sun shone. And the police waited. Why were they there? Who were they really after? You'll find out soon, and trust me, it's going to be so good. Karen had no idea what was coming, but Jake did. And that's what made it so exciting. It was a wild moment in Oakwood Pines. Karen Pritchard was standing on Jake Miller's lawn, yelling into her phone, thinking she'd finally beaten him. She'd just called 911 about his porch swing, telling them it was a big problem. She was so sure the police would come running to help her. And then, right on cue, a police car was there. The doors opened, and two cops stepped out. One was tall with a serious face, like he never smiled. The other was shorter, holding some papers in his hand. Karen heard the car doors and spun around fast, her eyes lighting up. She was smirking, a big, proud smile on her face. She thought she'd won. Officers! Karen shouted, pointing at Jake like he was a bad guy in a movie. Arrest this man. He's breaking HOA rules. Her voice was loud and bossy, just like always. She stood tall, her clipboard under her arm, her finger jabbing the air toward Jake. She was so sure the cops would march right over to him, grab him, and make him take down that swing. She'd been waiting for this moment, dreaming of it. In her mind, Jake was done for. But here's the thing, the cops didn't move toward Jake. Not even a step. They stood there, looking at her. The tall cop tilted his head a little, his eyes locked on Karen. Jake was still on his swing, rocking back and forth, sipping his coffee like it was just another day. Karen didn't notice the cops weren't listening to her. She kept pointing, waiting for them to do what she said. But they didn't. Instead, the tall cop spoke. His voice was deep and calm. Karen Pritchard, he said, looking right at her. Karen's smirk started to slip. She blinked, confused. Why yes, she answered, her voice wobbling a little. She wasn't so loud now. Her hand dropped a bit, and her eyes darted between the cops. Why were they asking for her name? Weren't they here for Jake? The tall cop took a step closer, his face still serious. We're here for you, he said. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. The cop kept going. We've got a warrant for your arrest, fraud and embezzlement from the HOA funds. Boom. Just like that, everything changed. Karen's face went white, like all the color ran away. Her eyes got huge, and her jaw dropped so low it almost hit the ground. Fraud. Embezzlement. Those were big words, but they meant something simple. Karen had been stealing money. Money from the HOA. Money that belonged to the neighborhood. She'd been caught, and the cops were here to take her away. Her clipboard slipped from under her arm and fell onto the grass with a soft thud. She didn't even try to pick it up. Jake leaned back on his swing, and now he was grinning. Not a little smile, a big, happy grin. He set his coffee down and watched Karen like he was enjoying a show. The neighbors, who'd been peeking out their windows, gasped. Some stepped onto their porches, eyes wide. What did he say? One lady whispered. Arresting Karen, a man said, scratching his head. Nobody could believe it. Karen, the bossy lady who ran everything, was in trouble? Big trouble? The shorter cop pulled out handcuffs, the metal jingling in his hands. Karen shook her head fast. No, no, this is a mistake, she said, her voice all shaky now. I didn't do anything. It's him you want. She pointed at Jake again, but it was weak, like she didn't even believe herself anymore. The tall cop didn't blink. We've been watching you for a while, Ms. Pritchard, he said. We've got proof. You've been taking money that's not yours. Karen's legs wobbled. She looked like she might fall over. The neighbors were buzzing now, whispering and pointing. Stealing, one said. From us, another asked. It was all sinking in. Karen, the one who yelled about rules, had been breaking the biggest rule of all. She'd been sneaky, taking cash from the HOA money they all paid to keep the neighborhood nice. And now she was caught. But here's the best part, the big reveal that made everyone's jaw drop. Jake wasn't just some random guy with a swing. Oh no. He stood up from his swing, brushing off his hands, and looked at Karen with that grin still on his face. Guess it's time to tell you, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm not just a neighbor. I'm an undercover detective. The crowd gasped again. A detective? Undercover? That meant Jake was a secret cop, pretending to be a regular guy. He'd been living there, watching Karen, waiting for her to mess up. And she did big time. Karen stared at him, her eyes so wide they looked like they might pop out. What? She stammered. Jake nodded. Yup. Been keeping an eye on you for months, he said. That swing? It was just a way to get you riled up. And it worked. He laughed a little, like it was all a game. The neighbors started talking fast. A detective, one lady said. No way, a kid shouted, jumping up and down. It was like a movie, but it was real. The tall cop grabbed Karen's arm gently. Let's go, ma'am, he said. The shorter cop clicked the handcuffs on her wrists. Click, click. Karen didn't fight. She just stood there, frozen, her head down. All that bossy energy was gone. She looked small now, not like the queen she thought she was. Jake watched as the cops led her to the car. You should have left the swing alone, he called after her. Karen didn't look back. The police car door opened, and they helped Karen inside. She sat down, staring at nothing, her face pale and shocked. The neighbors couldn't stop talking. He's a detective, one man said, laughing. She messed with the wrong guy, a lady added. Kids ran out into their yards, pointing at Jake like he was a superhero. And maybe he was. He'd tricked Karen, caught her stealing, and saved the day, all while sipping lemonade on his swing. Jake turned to the crowd and waved. Sorry for the drama, he said. Just doing my job. His voice was still calm, still friendly. The swing creaked behind him, rocking in the breeze. That swing had been the bait, the thing that made Karen so mad she didn't see the trap. And now she was caught, all because she couldn't leave it alone. Who saw that coming? Not Karen, that's for sure. She thought she was smarter than everyone, but Jake was way ahead of her. Months of watching, waiting, planning, and it all came down to this moment. The cops shut the car door, and Karen disappeared behind the tinted window. The tall cop nodded at Jake. Good work, he said. Jake just smiled. Thanks, he replied. It was fun. The neighbors cheered. Some clapped. Some laughed. Karen had been bossing them around for years, and now she was gone. Jake had flipped everything upside down, and it felt good. Really good. The sun was still shining, the birds were back to chirping, and Oakwood Pines was about to get a lot quieter. All because of a swing and a secret detective who knew how to use it. Karen Pritchard couldn't believe what was happening. Her mouth fell open wide as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Click, click, they locked tight, cold metal on her skin. This is a mistake, she screeched, her voice high and loud, like a bird in a panic. She shook her head fast, looking at the cops with big, wild eyes. You've got the wrong person, she yelled. But the cops didn't listen. They'd heard her story already, and they had proof. They weren't buying her excuses, not one bit. The tall cop held her arm, guiding her toward the police car. The shorter cop walked behind, making sure she didn't run. Karen kept talking, her words tumbling out fast. I didn't do anything. It's him. Arrest him. She tried to point at Jake Miller, but with her hands cuffed, she couldn't. The neighbors watched it all. They peeked out their windows, hiding behind curtains, or stood on their porches, whispering to each other. She's going to jail, one lady said softly. Wow, look at that, a man replied, his voice low. They couldn't stop staring as Karen was led away. Jake stood up from his porch swing, brushing the dust off his hands. He looked at the crowd gathering around, neighbors, kids, even a few dogs barking at the excitement. I tried to keep it quiet, he said, his voice nice and steady. But she made it hard. He shrugged, like it was no big deal. The neighbors nodded, starting to smile. They liked Jake. And now they knew the truth: he wasn't just a guy with a swing. He was a detective, a hero who'd caught a thief. Turns out, Karen had been sneaky for years. She'd been taking money from the HOA little bits at a time, so no one noticed. That money was supposed to fix the playground, paint the fences, keep the neighborhood pretty. But Karen kept it for herself, buying fancy things like new shoes and big sunglasses. She thought she'd never get caught. Even when Jake moved in with his swing, she didn't care, she just wanted to boss him around. But Jake was there to bust her. Swing or no swing, he had her number. The cops put Karen in the car and shut the door. She sat there, head down, not so bossy anymore. The car drove off, and the neighbors cheered. Good riddance, one man shouted. She's gone, a kid yelled, jumping up and down. By the next day, things got even better. The neighborhood had a meeting and picked a new HOA president, a nice lady who didn't yell or carry a clipboard. Everyone was happy about that. And Jake's swing? It became famous. People started calling it the detective swing. Kids would ride their bikes by just to see it. Neighbors waved at Jake more, saying hi and good job. He'd wave back, sipping lemonade, rocking on that creaky swing. It wasn't a troublemaker anymore, it was a star. Justice feels sweet, doesn't it? Karen was gone, the money stealing was over, and Jake had made everything right. Okay, friends, let's talk about what we learned from Jake and Karen. Here's the thing, sometimes the loudest people, the ones who yell and boss everyone around, are hiding something big. Karen was like that. She acted like she was the queen of Oakwood Pines, always telling people what to do. She shouted about Jake's swing, waved her clipboard, and made a big fuss. But deep down, she had a secret. She was stealing money, and all that noise was her way of keeping people from finding out. The louder she got, the more she was trying to hide. And then there's Jake. He was quiet. He didn't yell or fight back. He just sat on his swing, sipping lemonade, smiling like nothing was wrong. But guess what? The quiet ones can be the strongest. Jake wasn't just a regular guy, he was a hero, a detective waiting for the perfect moment to catch Karen. He didn't need to be loud. He didn't need to show off. He just watched and waited, and when the time was right, he made everything better. Sometimes, the people who don't say much are the ones with the most power. So, next time you see someone picking a fight over something small like a swing or a messy yard, stop and think. What are they really afraid of? Maybe they're mad because they're scared. Maybe they're hiding something, just like Karen was. People who make a lot of noise might not be as tough as they seem. And the quiet ones? They might surprise you. They might be the ones who save the day, like Jake did. This story shows us something cool: you don't have to be loud to be strong. You can be calm, you can be kind, and still be a hero. Jake didn't let Karen scare him. He didn't get mad or run away. He stayed steady, and that's why he won. We can be like that too. If someone's mean to you over something silly, you don't have to shout back. You can stay cool, figure things out, and come out on top. It's like a secret superpower, being quiet but smart. Thanks for sticking with me, friends. I hope you liked this wild tale about Jake, Karen, and that famous swing. It was fun to tell, and I'm glad you were here for it. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you do with a neighbor like Karen? Would you fight back? Would you ignore her? Drop your ideas in the comments below, I can't wait to read them. And if you loved this story, stick around. I've got more exciting ones coming your way. See you next time, and keep being awesome.